What if perfection was just a disguise? Everyone in Maplewood thought Ethan and Claire Miller had the kind of marriage you only saw in movies. Their smiles looked effortless. Their laughter felt real. Their home, a neat white cottage on a quiet street near Seattle, seemed touched by sunshine even on rainy days. Ethan was a calm, soft-spoken software engineer. Claire was an artist who filled the house with color and life. They cooked together, walked their golden retriever by the lake, and posted pictures that made strangers believe love could actually last forever. But behind all that beauty, something didn't fit right. It was small things at first, too small to question. Ethan would pause half a second before saying, "I love you." He'd smile, but his eyes didn't always follow. Claire noticed it in those silent seconds after dinner when he stared at nothing, lost somewhere she couldn't reach. She wanted to ask what was wrong, but she stopped herself. Every marriage had quiet moments, she told herself. Every couple had secrets that didn't matter. Still, there was the phone. The late-night buzz that always came after midnight. Ethan would grab it quickly, step outside, and talk in low tones under the porch light. When he came back, he'd smile too easily. "Just work," he'd say. Claire pretended to believe him, but the unease began to grow roots in her heart. One rainy afternoon, while cleaning his study, she decided to dust the bookshelf, something she hadn't done in months. Books lined up neatly like soldiers. Ethan liked order, but when she pulled one of the thick volumes, a novel he'd never finished, something slipped out. A brown envelope. No address, no stamp, just a name written in neat, familiar handwriting. Her own. She froze. It was addressed to Claire Miller. Her heart raced as she turned it over. The paper felt old, the corners yellowed slightly. She shouldn't open it. It wasn't right, but curiosity took over. She slid her finger under the flap and pulled out a folded letter. The handwriting was hers. The loops, the slant, the way she wrote the word love, but the date at the top. It said April 12th, 2016. That was 3 years before she even met Ethan. She frowned. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe she wrote it during college, before marriage, and forgot. She started reading, and the first line made her hands shake. "If you're reading this, it means you finally found the man I warned you about." Claire blinked, her breath catching. What did that mean, warned? Who was she warning herself about? Her eyes moved fast, trying to make sense of it, but the letter stopped there. No explanation, just her signature at the bottom. "With love, Claire." It didn't make sense. How could she have written a letter to her future self about a man she hadn't even met? She sat there, the room spinning slightly. The rain outside grew heavier, drumming against the window. The sound felt louder than usual, like the world was trying to drown her thoughts. Her phone buzzed suddenly. Ethan. "Hey, I'll be late tonight." Meeting ran over. "Don't wait for me." Her fingers hovered over the reply button. "Okay," she typed, then erased it. She wanted to ask, "Who are you really meeting?" But she didn't. Instead, she just typed, "Be safe." That night, she placed the letter back exactly where she found it. But sleep wouldn't come. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw her own handwriting, the warning that made no sense. If it was real, what was it trying to tell her? The next morning, she stared at herself in the mirror. Same face, same brown eyes, same calm smile. But there was something different in her reflection. A question she couldn't unsee. Did I know something back then that I've forgotten now? She whispered. She decided to search for answers. She checked her old journals, sketchbooks, and even old emails. Nothing. No mention of a letter. No sign of any man before Ethan who fit the mystery. But as she looked deeper, she began noticing something odd. Photos. Some printed, some digital. In one, taken at her art exhibition years ago, Ethan was in the background, blurred, but there. It couldn't be. She didn't meet him until 2019. This photo was from 2016. Her stomach dropped. She zoomed in, her heart pounding. The shape of his face, the tilt of his head. It was definitely him. He looked younger, but it was Ethan. The room suddenly felt smaller. She picked up the phone and almost called him, but stopped. What would she say? "Why were you in a photo from before I met you? Why did I write myself a warning?" Instead, she opened the letter again, reading it over and over. The ink had faded slightly, but one detail stood out now. A faint mark at the bottom corner. It looked like a thumbprint. Not hers. For a moment she thought of going to the police. But how could she explain this? "Hi, I found a letter from myself about my husband before I met him." They'd think she was losing her mind. As the day passed, she couldn't focus on anything. Her brush strokes on the canvas looked wrong. The colors didn't blend. Every tick of the clock felt too loud. She waited for Ethan to come home, rehearsing what to say. But when he walked in, smiling, holding her favorite takeout, her courage vanished. He kissed her cheek and asked, "Long day?" She nodded, trying to read his eyes. "Yeah, just tired." When he turned away to wash his hands, she studied him quietly. The curve of his shoulders, the familiar sound of his voice. It was all normal. Perfectly normal. And yet she couldn't unsee that letter. That night, when he fell asleep beside her, Claire slipped out of bed and returned to the study. She opened his desk drawer again, searching for something, anything, that could explain the letter or that strange photo. Then, in the bottom drawer, she found a small key taped under the wooden divider. She looked around and noticed a locked box in the corner, one she had never seen before. Her pulse raced as she used the key. The lock clicked open softly. Inside were photos, dozens of them, all of her. Some she recognized, from their wedding, from her art shows. But some were older. From places she'd never been. In one, she stood near a cafe in New York, a city she had never visited, and then, tucked under the last photo, she found a folded note. It wasn't in her handwriting this time. "You weren't supposed to remember." Her hand shook as she looked at the words. The room felt cold. Her breath caught. She wanted to wake Ethan and demand answers. But something told her not to, because if this letter was right, maybe the truth was something she wasn't meant to know at all. Can you trust your own memories? Claire barely slept that night. Her heart kept replaying the image of that small box, those strange photographs, and that one haunting note. You weren't supposed to remember. Every word echoed like a whisper she couldn't escape. The morning light felt colder than usual, and when Ethan kissed her cheek before leaving for work, she flinched. His touch felt unfamiliar. She stood by the window long after he left, clutching a mug of coffee gone cold. Her mind raced. What did that note mean? What was she not supposed to remember? And why were there photos of her from before she met him, in cities she'd never visited? She tried to tell herself it was all explainable. Maybe someone hacked her social media and made fake pictures. Maybe Ethan collected them out of love, not secrecy. Maybe that strange letter from herself was just a coincidence, an old art project, a forgotten joke. But the more she tried to believe it, the more her gut screamed otherwise. Something was wrong. Very wrong. That afternoon, she opened her laptop and searched memory manipulation, false memories, handwriting simulation. She found articles about people who believed things that never happened. But it didn't comfort her. Because this wasn't confusion. This was evidence. Physical proof. She walked to Ethan's study again, hoping to find something new. But the box was gone. The drawer was empty. Her heart dropped. He'd found out she'd seen it. The front door opened. Ethan was home early. "Hey, you're back?" she asked, trying to sound casual. He smiled, placing his briefcase down. "Yeah, meeting got canceled. Thought I'd surprise you." Her stomach twisted. "Surprise you?" That word didn't sound sweet anymore. It sounded like a warning. She sat opposite him at dinner, forcing small talk. But her mind was spinning. She needed to know more, without him realizing it. So, she decided to test him. "Remember our trip to Montreal?" she said, pretending to look nostalgic. Ethan looked up instantly, smiling. "Of course. That's where you bought that blue scarf you loved." Her heart froze. She made that story up. There was no trip, no scarf, no Montreal. "Yeah," she said softly, pretending to agree. But inside, her world was spinning. If he remembered something that never happened, then either he was lying, or he believed it. The next morning, Claire drove to the small local gallery where she used to work before her marriage. Her friend Lisa still managed the place. She asked casually, "Hey, do you remember when Ethan and I met?"
You were there, right?
Lisa looked confused. Met? You mean at the gallery when you spilled coffee on his jacket? Claire froze. That was the exact story Ethan had told her, but she knew it wasn't true. They met at a friend's house party. She remembered it clearly. The music, the candles, the first laugh. Unless, had she only thought she remembered it? That night, Claire couldn't take it anymore. She went through every digital photo again. Dates didn't line up. In some pictures, she wore jewelry she didn't own. In others, her face looked the same, but her eyes seemed different, as if from another version of her. And then, in one folder on Ethan's computer, hidden behind layers of old work files, she found something that made her blood run cold. A document titled Phase 2. Inside was a list of names, dates, and places. Beside her name it said, "Subject adjusted successfully. Memory stabilized. Monitoring recommended." The words didn't make sense. Subject adjusted? She scrolled further and saw a paragraph describing her personality, her fears, her habits, her past trauma. Things she had never told Ethan. She closed the laptop fast, her hands shaking. Was this some twisted experiment? A cruel joke? Or was Ethan part of something she couldn't understand? The sound of the door opening made her jump. Ethan was home again, earlier than expected. "Claire?" he called. "You okay?" She quickly minimized the screen and smiled weakly. "Yeah, just working on something." He walked closer, studying her face. "You look tired." "Just didn't sleep well," she said. He kissed her forehead. "You worry too much. Everything's fine." But it wasn't. That night, when he fell asleep, Claire sat in the dark, watching him. His breathing was steady, peaceful, too peaceful, like someone who knew she'd never dare to confront him. She whispered, "Who are you, Ethan?" But got no answer, only silence. By morning, she made a decision. She needed proof, something that could tell her if she was losing her mind or if Ethan was hiding something beyond imagination. She went to a local handwriting analyst. Pretending to be curious about a creative project, she handed over 2 samples, her normal, handwriting and a scanned copy of the mysterious 2016 letter. The woman studied it under a magnifying glass for a few minutes, then looked up. "These are identical. Same pressure, same rhythm, same emotional tone. You definitely wrote both, just years apart." Claire's stomach dropped. "But that's impossible. I hadn't met my husband back then." The woman smiled awkwardly. "Memory can be strange sometimes. Maybe you wrote it and forgot." Claire nodded and left, but the words identical handwriting wouldn't leave her mind. As she drove home, her hands trembled on the steering wheel. Maybe it was true. Maybe she'd forgotten something important. Maybe she really had written that warning to herself. When she reached home, she saw Ethan standing on the porch, waiting. His expression was calm, but his eyes held something new, something almost knowing. "Where were you?" he asked softly. "Just out for a drive." "Without your phone?" Her pulse quickened. She didn't remember leaving her phone, but it was sitting on the kitchen counter. Had he tracked her? He smiled faintly. "You should be careful. It's not safe to go off alone these days." She tried to act normal, but every word felt heavy. The warmth between them had turned into quiet fear. That night, when Ethan went to shower, she picked up his phone. He'd changed the password. She tried a few guesses, no luck. But one attempt unlocked the gallery app. And there, hidden in an album labeled Memories, were videos. In one, Ethan was sitting beside her hospital bed. She looked pale, her eyes half open. He whispered, "It's okay. You won't remember any of this. It's better this way." Her heart stopped. She dropped the phone, stepping back, gasping for air. The sound of running water continued in the background. Ethan was still in the shower. She picked up the phone again and pressed play on another video. This one showed her sitting in a room with white walls, hooked to medical wires. A voice, maybe his, said softly, "Claire, when you wake up, everything will be new." "You'll be safe," she felt sick. Her own voice answered faintly in the video. "Promise me I won't remember." The screen went dark. Her whole body trembled. It wasn't just that Ethan had lied. It was that she had agreed to forget. The shower stopped. Footsteps. Ethan was coming back. She quickly hid the phone on the couch and sat still, pretending to read. He walked in, smiling as if nothing had happened. "You okay?" Claire forced a nod, her heart pounding. "Good," he said softly, leaning closer. "You look like you've remembered something." She froze. The room went silent. He was smiling, not warmly, but knowingly, and in that moment, Claire realized the truth she feared most. The secret wasn't something Ethan was keeping from her. It was something she had once asked him to keep for her. What if love itself was built on a lie? Claire could no longer tell what was real and what wasn't. Every word Ethan spoke felt rehearsed. Every touch felt careful, like he was handling something fragile, something he didn't want to break again. But deep inside, she already felt broken. She couldn't stop thinking about that video, her lying in a hospital bed, promising she wouldn't remember. The next morning, she pretended everything was normal. She made pancakes, smiled at Ethan, and even asked about his work. But her mind was working faster than ever. If he had erased her memories, then what else had he changed? After he left for the office, she searched the house like someone looking for air underwater. Every drawer, every folder, every corner that had once felt like home was now suspicious. She found nothing new, until she checked behind a painting in the hallway. There was a safe embedded in the wall. Small, silver, and locked with a digital keypad. Her first instinct was to step away, but then she remembered the date on that first letter, April 12th, 2016. She typed it in. The light turned green. The door opened. Inside were two things, a flash drive and a small velvet box. The flash drive held more videos. Some of her, some of Ethan, and some of both. But they weren't the sweet, everyday clips couples record. These were interviews, recorded sessions. In one, she sat on a chair, hooked to some kind of device, while a voice-off camera asked gentle questions. "Do you remember his name?" She answered softly, "Ethan." "And how do you feel about him?" "I love him. I think I always have." Her tone was blank, robotic, like she was reading from a script. In another clip, she cried while holding a photo of a baby. The voice said, "Do you want to forget?" She nodded, whispering, "Yes, please." Claire covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face. The pieces were falling into place. The car accident, the loss, the letter to herself, the erased memories. She hadn't just lost a husband once. She had chosen to erase the pain of losing a child and start again. Ethan had only done what she'd begged him to do, but something still didn't fit. If she had wanted to forget, why did she feel so trapped now? Why had he hidden everything from her instead of telling the truth when she began remembering? She opened the velvet box. Inside was a ring, not her wedding ring, but smaller, engraved with the initials C+L. She didn't recognize it. Who was L? Before she could think further, she heard a car pull into the driveway. Ethan was home early. Again. She quickly hid everything back in the safe and closed it. The sound of his footsteps came closer. She forced a smile. "You're home already?" "Missed you," he said simply, kissing her forehead. But his eyes were scanning the room, too alert, too aware. That night, Claire couldn't take it anymore. She decided to confront him, but carefully. "Ethan," she began softly, "do you ever think about the past?" He looked up from his laptop. "Why would I? We're happy now." "But what if forgetting isn't the same as healing?" she asked. His expression hardened just slightly. "Claire, you promised you wouldn't go down this road again." "Again?" she whispered. "What do you mean again?" He sighed deeply, rubbing his temples. "You've done this before. You start remembering bits and pieces and you fall apart. That's why you wrote the letter. That's why we did this, so you could have peace." Her heart pounded. Peace or control? He stared at her for a long time, then smiled sadly. "You think I wanted this? You begged me to make you forget. You couldn't live with what happened. You said if I loved you, I'd erase it all. So I did." She felt tears burn her eyes. "And what about you? Do you ever remember?" He looked away. Every day, silence filled the room. It wasn't anger, it was heartbreak. For the first time, Claire realized Ethan wasn't the villain in this story. He was living with the full truth, every painful memory, while she lived in the comfort of forgetting. Still, something about his tone felt off. If she had really asked for this, why did it feel like more was missing? Why the lies, the surveillance, the hidden files? When he went to bed, she stayed awake. She waited until his breathing was steady, then crept back to the safe. She pulled out the flash drive again, plugged it into her laptop, and opened one final folder labeled Restricted. There was only one file inside. She clicked it. The video opened on a dimly lit room. Ethan was sitting across from another man, a doctor maybe. The man said, "So you're sure you want to proceed? She won't remember any of it." Ethan nodded. "She can't. It'll destroy her." "And the other one?" the man asked. Ethan hesitated. "He's gone. She can't know about him. The other one." Her heart thudded. Who was the other one? Her mind flashed back to the ring. C plus L. Was L another man? Someone she'd loved before Ethan? Someone she'd forgotten? The room spun. She tried to breathe, but her chest felt tight. She closed the laptop just as Ethan stirred in the bedroom. She slipped back under the covers, pretending to sleep. He turned slightly, wrapping his arm around her, whispering, "I told you not to remember." Her eyes shot open. He was awake. He knew. The next morning, Claire acted normal again, but her decision was made. She had to find that doctor. Whoever he was, he had answers. And maybe the truth about Elle. She searched Ethan's office once more before leaving, scanning papers, files, receipts, until she found one. A bill from a medical research facility 2 towns away, dated years ago. She got into her car and drove there, the paper clutched in her hand. The building looked empty, almost abandoned, but the front desk still had a light on. She told the receptionist she was looking for Dr. Myers, the name on the bill. The woman frowned. "Dr. Myers left years ago. He moved his private practice to Portland." "Do you have his number?" Claire asked desperately. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I can't share that." Claire sighed, thanked her, and turned to leave. But just as she stepped outside, her phone buzzed. "Unknown number," she answered. A calm male voice said, "Claire, you shouldn't have come here." She froze. "Who is this?" The line crackled. "You're starting to remember faster than expected. He'll come for you soon, but before he does, go to the lake house. You'll find what you've forgotten there." The call ended. Her pulse raced. The lake house. She didn't remember owning one, but a flicker of an image flashed. Water, sunlight, laughter. It felt like a dream. That evening, she packed a small bag and waited until Ethan was asleep. She left quietly, her heart pounding with fear and hope. The drive took an hour. The GPS led her to a small cabin near the edge of the lake. Peaceful, untouched, quiet. She stepped inside and flicked on the light. The air smelled faintly of paint and wood. On the mantel sat a framed photograph, her holding a baby, a man beside her who wasn't Ethan. His smile looked familiar, kind and loving. Her eyes filled with tears. The engraving on the frame said, "Claire and Liam, 2015. Her knees went weak. Liam. L. Before she could process it, headlights flashed outside. A car had pulled up. Ethan's. Her breath caught. He was here. What if the truth you've been searching for could destroy the life you built? The headlights cut through the fog, washing the small lake house in white light. Claire froze, her heart thudding so hard she could feel it in her throat. She'd only just found the photo, her holding a baby beside a man named Liam, when Ethan's car stopped outside. The world seemed to go still. The only sound was the faint hum of his engine and the beating of her own heart. She stepped back from the window, her hands shaking. She knew she couldn't hide. Not anymore. Not after everything she'd remembered. The door opened quietly. Ethan stepped inside, his expression unreadable. He looked around the cabin, his gaze falling on the photograph in her hands. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The silence felt heavier than any words could. "You found it," he said finally, voice calm but tired. Claire swallowed. Who is he? Ethan took a slow breath. You already know, she shook her head. No, I don't. I want you to tell me. He looked at the floor. Liam was your first husband. The words hit her like a wave. First husband. The name echoed through her mind like a ghost she could suddenly remember. Fragments of memories flashed. Laughter, sunlight on the lake, a baby's cry, then rain, sirens, and darkness. What happened to him? She whispered. Ethan looked at her with eyes full of guilt. You both were in the car that night. He didn't make it. You lost the baby too. You were broken, Claire. You couldn't breathe, couldn't sleep. You begged me to help you forget. I was your doctor back then. I shouldn't have agreed, but I loved you. I couldn't watch you drown in grief. Her whole body trembled. You were my doctor? Yes, he said softly. I shouldn't have crossed that line. But you didn't want to live anymore, so we erased it. Everything that tied you to that pain. I changed my name. We started over. Claire backed away, shaking her head in disbelief. You lied to me for years. I saved you, Ethan said, his voice breaking. You asked me to. She sank onto the couch, the truth hitting like cold rain. Every memory she had built, every smile, every dinner, every quiet evening, had been built on top of another life buried deep beneath it. Liam, her first husband. Their baby, and Ethan, the man who helped her forget them. Tears blurred her vision. You took my past from me. He knelt down, his voice soft. Because you told me to. You wanted peace. You wrote that letter yourself. You said if you ever started remembering, I should let you go through it slowly, not all at once. She looked up at him, broken. Then why did you hide the truth? Why didn't you tell me when I found the first letter? Ethan sighed. Because you weren't ready. You never are. This has happened before. Her breath caught. Before? He nodded. Every few years, the memories try to come back. You find clues, a letter, a photo, something I couldn't bring myself to destroy. And every time you fall apart, you remember everything. The pain crushes you. You say you can't live with it. And then you ask me to make you forget again. She stared at him, horrified. How many times? 3, he whispered. This is the 4th. The words stole the air from her lungs. 4 times. 4 new beginnings. 4 lives built on the same buried heartbreak. She couldn't tell if she wanted to scream or cry. You can't keep doing this to me, she said, voice trembling. He looked at her gently. I didn't do this to you. I did it for you. She stood up, backing toward the door. No, you did it for yourself. You didn't want to lose me, so you kept rebuilding me. You kept me trapped in a lie. He took a step closer, desperate now. Claire, please. You don't understand. If you remember everything at once, it will destroy you. You tried before, then let it, she cried. Let me remember. I have a right to know who I am. Her voice echoed through the quiet cabin. Ethan froze, pain flashing across his face. For the first time, he looked small, not powerful, not in control. Just a man holding on to someone who no longer belonged to him. Finally, he said softly, If you really want to remember, then I can't stop you. He reached into his pocket and handed her a small vial of liquid labeled Recovery Serum, Phase Reversal. This will bring everything back, he said. Every memory, every moment, but once it starts, there's no going back. She stared at it, her fingers trembling. And if I don't take it, then you'll forget this conversation tomorrow, he said quietly. You'll wake up believing we've always been happy. Claire looked between him and the vial. The rain outside began to fall harder, the sound filling the silence. She closed her eyes and whispered, I can't live half a life anymore. Before Ethan could stop her, she uncapped the vial and drank it. He grabbed her shoulders, terrified. Claire, you don't know what you're doing. But it was too late. She staggered backward, gripping her head as flashes of memories rushed through her like a storm. Laughter. A baby's tiny fingers. Liam's face smiling under the sun. The crash, the hospital, the screaming, the darkness. She fell to her knees, sobbing. Ethan tried to hold her, but she pushed him away. You lied to me, she whispered. You played God. He shook his head, tears streaming down his own face. I loved you. I only wanted to give you peace. She stood slowly, her voice steady but cold. Then you should have let me grieve. You should have let me live. She picked up the photo of Liam and the baby, clutching it to her chest. The woman in that picture, she wasn't gone anymore. She was her. Ethan stepped closer. Claire, please. We can start over again. We always do. She looked at him. Really looked. And for the first time, she saw not the man she loved, but the man who had rewritten her life. No, Ethan. This time, I remember. She walked past him, out into the rain, her tears blending with the water running down her face. She didn't know where she was going, only that she had to go. Ethan followed her to the porch, his voice breaking. Claire, you won't survive this. You said it yourself. She turned back, her eyes filled with pain and clarity. Maybe I wasn't meant to forget. Maybe pain was the only real thing I had left. The rain poured harder, blurring the distance between them. For a moment, it felt like the whole world was holding its breath. Then, from behind Ethan, a light flickered inside the cabin. The laptop she'd left on had powered itself on again. Across the screen, a new message appeared. A video file she hadn't opened before labeled Final Protocol. Ethan turned and froze. The file opened automatically, showing him speaking into the camera. If you're seeing this, Claire, it means the reversal worked. You've remembered everything, but there's one last truth I never told you. Claire's heart pounded as she stepped closer, rain dripping from her hair. Ethan stood motionless, staring at the screen. The recorded version of him continued, his voice shaking. I didn't erase your memories alone. You asked me to do it because you knew something worse was coming. Someone else wanted you to forget. Someone who's still looking for you. The screen glitched, cutting off. Claire looked at Ethan, who was pale, silent, and trembling. Who's looking for me? She whispered. He didn't answer. Outside, the sound of another car approached through the rain, slow, deliberate, stopping right outside the cabin. The headlights turned off. Claire's breath caught, and for the first time, she realized the story wasn't over. It was just beginning.